Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel solo mode. So, I am in the middle of the 1 year anniversary and I played some of the solo stuff off screen and we did Dream Domination on screen last time to try to get more crystals. I did manage to do daily quests and through getting probably maybe 200 to 300 crystals that I hadn't collected before in these previous solo places. I did get to the 3,000 you need to buy the 1 year anniversary bundle of 30 Master Duel packs, which inherently, I think it's worth pointing out, didn't really help greatly because by buying this special here that gives you 30 Master Duel packs, Master packs being the worst packs you could possibly open and never recommended at all because they do not increase your odds of getting any cards specifically, and it is just pulling from the 7,000 card pool that is available throughout the game. But by doing that, it opened a massive amount of secret packs, all of which now have 6 to 7 hours of time left on them. And I did this yesterday, and so you only have like 24 hours, basically. Which logically would have meant you needed at least 1,000 extra gems for this one, if you actually were going to delve and open each of these secret packs. The fact that there's a time limit on these secret packs is really just incredibly manipulative and stupid at this point, because you'd have to be pretty much obsessed with buying cards to fall for it. It just hurts the game and makes the game feel cheesy, frankly, in manipulative in its monetization efforts, which are not even effective. So yeah, I accomplished my goal. There are 3 more solo mode things here that we could go through. But we know what these are going to do. They're going to tell me a story, and eventually I will go through them. But I would like to know what this new section way up here is about as far as Duel Restart. Is this for players who return to the game a year later after trying it out and have forgotten? For when you want to learn or relearn the basics of dueling, take this first step here. We recommend that you play this before you try duel training or any of the many gates you are experiencing in the story. So this may be very short. Something, I guess, right between like tutorial and duel training. And almost certainly, I would think that this would be your onboarding process if you started to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel now. Now, I speculated that maybe they weren't programmed, the game wasn't programmed in such a way that you could only play with loner decks in the one of the 2 current festivals that are about to launch. This is going to be super easy. Like, I don't even have to read any of this. I'm going to burn through this in like 5 minutes. And I'm not even going to begin to pretend to read any of this because it just doesn't matter. So we have a character here with 0 attack and a lot of defense. The monster's going to attack and we're going to win just because we're both at incredibly low amounts of health. Which this is, at this point, more of a logical fallacy than a reality in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, almost never do you set a card, or do you even have cards in your deck that aren't effect cards that have high defense, and that you make any significant progress by somebody attacking. I'm fairly certain I already have like 9 copies of this card. But Mage Power isn't really a terrible card to get. And by me saying I have 9 copies of them, that's to say that I've gotten 3 through other means that can't be dissolved as extra. Yeah. Being fairly high level as far as my understanding of Yu-Gi-Oh! I won't say really high level, but high level enough. I would say the only real experience you could have here is to not read this and then challenge yourself by not reading it. Again, this is a case where I think he's going to attack, and I'm going to end up like trying to weaken the character. $300, $500. So potential mistake could have been made, but I suspect the game wouldn't have really let me do it there. So this artwork in the background is nothing, and there's no story around any of this. But I can't really complain about any of this either, because this is exactly the kind of thing that would have been better had I had for new players and even for returning players to just maybe relearn the terminology. For all the people like me who are playing Hearthstone or Shadowverse or Magic the Gathering Arena, like all those different games could easily have confused me a little bit on as far as Yu-Gi-Oh! And in all fairness, even like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links was a somewhat different experience. So getting back to I don't know why it had me set the spell card there. It's just telling you can't put a card face down and then activate it, which, I mean, since the opponent had no cards in their hands, there's really zero reason why you'd ever do that. You might set a card face down in the hopes that they would have some kind of card destruction quick play spell that they might trigger, but the odds of that are so incredibly low, it's not really worth your time to set a card face down instead of just activating the spell. If it was a quick play card and you were setting it face down, that would make slightly sense, and trap cards have to be set face down. This definitely covers a gap in some of the concepts that you may not have picked up learning Yu-Gi-Oh! But in fairness, a lot of these concepts are not used very often. Like main phase 2, very infrequently used. In fact, my Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck literally has a strategy for using main phase 2, and I didn't even realize it, and for like the first 6 months that I played that deck, which is definitely a problem when you build a deck from an online guide, is the strategies aren't as well explained. Alright, so we're gonna summon this, and then whatever this card does. I guess they're gonna make an argument that you can play it safe and not put a trap down to start with in the main phase 1, which this card would destroy the trap card, which nobody plays that card. Yeah, this is really just a great example of Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though they have been really good about adding cards and continuing their game's success, they've never been super great about taking established ideas and making them more playable or more balanced in favor of just adding new ideas. Fusion and polymerization is kind of a great example of that as far as the extras deck is concerned. Because after they gave up on the idea of using polymerization for everything, they just continuously added XYZ summons and pendulum summons and fusion summons that don't require polymerization as a spell card. And arguably I would agree with that. Yep. Clearly they are programmed here where they can give you only a loner deck or only your pre-built deck. But this is really going to be a very far twist now, because I'm going to be playing with my Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck in an actual challenge, in an actual duel. Whereas if you were playing this right as you had just started to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, you would have been given one of 3 starter decks, and you would have been asked to do that. But yeah, here's an example of XYZ summoning not requiring polymerization, and they never really brought back polymerization as a thing. They don't make, as far as I can tell, any new cards that require polymerization. And there really would not be a good reason to there really isn't a good reason to play polymerization in the deck these days. Or even play the old cards that would require polymerization. Even if you were doing a modern attempt at something like a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon deck, I think even then there's probably a newer version of that kind of deck that doesn't heavily rely on polymerization or require it at all. Right. So, do this, and then in the second phase, I bring out Zeus. Which arguably I could have attached more cards to Zeus and activated his ability more often, but I will not do that. And that's literally the only thing I do in a fairly complicated deck on main phase 2. On top of which, there's literally no card I would put in defense mode ever, particularly against this deck, which is gonna just have pathetic, weak cards. So I'm just playing a strategy that in no way even matches what they're playing. 900 attack is basically a joke. Zeus can clear the board completely, and where I am at, I basically have to set this card to activate this card. This is insanity, certainly. To discard this card. To destroy my own card. And I just did that to activate that ability. To then throw that in there. To activate that ability. To then add this to my hand. To summon that to the ground. To the monster field. To do this. To then be able to have 4 things in the graveyard to banish. To summon this guy. Don't activate his effect. And between all of that work, that is your second turn victory. Not a 1-turn kill, but just a lot of player. And that really is sadly the nature of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment, is that if you're playing somebody that doesn't have some way of stopping you from doing 8+ steps in your first or second turn, then you will win. Or more likely, if you don't have something in your deck that would stop your opponent from doing 8+ steps on their first or second turn, you will lose. So we've got a new monster base we've earned for doing all of that. Okay, and that says the gate was clear. Noticeably here, since this is supposed to be something you play early on, they're not giving you any of the secondary currency. Alright. They don't seem like they've given any extra thought, however, to the order of these stories after you get past the first tutorial ones. And artistically, I'd say there's a pretty big inconsistency artistic-wise as far as these 3 first stories, and they don't visually stand out as these are different than those. Yeah, and then you still have the solo play deck challenges that also stand out, and it feels like those should be in their own place. Well, that was only 18 minutes, so now let's do Delightful Dwellers of Darkness. Ghost tricks employ sneaky tactics such as hiding face down in defense position or popping up in unexpected places such as in the hand. It's impossible to hate these mischievous camps, so let's try to uncover their secrets. Yeah, I have seen a little bit of these ghost trick cards as a new concept, and maybe that was their effort to potentially introduce more face-down defensive characters. Even when I was playing some of the Game Boy, Nintendo DS, Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games, there really was only like one card that was worth playing that was a defensive card. Almost every other card is offensive, having higher attack than its defense, or it was some kind of effect monster. It seems like they're going for more of a kid-friendly, cartoony Halloween theme visually, which that's fine. I don't really expect Yu-Gi-Oh! To be particularly mature. Welcome everyone to the mansion where many ghost trick Duel The Western style house is located at the edge of town on top of a small hill. So this is the closest, best example we've seen so far of them translating from Japanese to English, because you would not call this a Western style house if you were in Europe, UK, the United States, anywhere in the West. You'd only call the Western style house if your default in your mind is a Japanese style house with paper walls and sliding doors and things like that. And honestly, even at that level, I don't know how many Japanese people, particularly in Tokyo, are living in Japanese style houses as much as they may be just living in apartments that are much more westernized. Anyways, tiny little apartments. And this place used to be inhabited by humans, but they're now long gone. Since when, no one knows, but there's a certain rumor about it that was whispered around town. Did you know? They say there are ghouls, even evil spirits, living in that mansion. Arguably, this is also Western-style ghouls and monsters, because, like, once you start to get into the pantheon of Japanese ghouls and monsters, it is very unrecognizable to the West. We have, like, Frankenstein and Dracula and a lot of that European authorship towards the monsters, like The Mummy. Think of the, like, Universal Studios monsters movies, which even those are so old now. That's a old reference. But the Japanese would think more like the slit-mouthed woman and stories like that are mostly, I think, passed down from mouth to mouth in like ghost stories told by school children, more than anything that was actually written down, and they just don't have as much of a foundation. There's definitely some Shintoism or Buddhism wrapped around Japanese monsters too, and there's an idea of, like, the very old objects becoming capable of becoming alive and having spirits to them. So there's ideas of, like, old umbrellas turning into monsters. And there are different kinds of monsters too. There's actual demons that they would call Oni, and then I think Okami are more spirits. And Okami may be the wrong word too. Let's not make this go on too long now. So if you accidentally wander in, you will be attacked and feel the wrath of the spirits. See, even here you can see there's heads of people talking, kind of big heads, passing it mouth to mouth instead of written down or in any other form of media. I don't know what's a spirit or a ghost is, but I know one thing for sure. And see, again, probably one of these probably does say, like, Oni, and one of these words probably says something different. Like, and maybe neither one of them actually say Oni. There's just multiple versions of spiritual-like creatures in the Japanese language, whereas spirits are basically the only thing you would call something in English, and in English we think of spirits as being only from disembodied human souls. We don't think of the idea of there being haunted objects or objects that can move on their own. There's certainly something that's not human living in that mansion. Seems like we have human visitors tonight. It probably would have made sense here if this was done in a different font, or at least a different color, because this sounds like this sentence is being said by this Dracula-like character. These loudmouth residents are even more excited than usual. So yeah, as we're slowly scrolling down here, you have kind of a ghost-looking thing, ghoul, pumpkin, jack-o'-lantern type character. I don't even know what that is. You have like a witch girl here, you have a Frankenstein here, you have what I assume is supposed to be maybe a succubus, but almost looks like it might be some weird angel twist. And then you have, I guess this might be a like Bloody Mary or the Lady in the Mirror type character. Then you have like a, yeah, I guess this is supposed to be an angel, which they just, you really wouldn't put an angel in it. And then you just have spirits floating up and down animated, and then you have a devil character. And then I would have to assume that this is a Chinese vampire, hopping vampire, because you see their foot is backwards like this, and this is Chinese style. And yeah, the Chinese vampires and hopping vampires are just like completely different in feel and appearance. So yeah, if anything, I would say there's kind of a lack of Japanese, in particular, monsters, and that this is more traditional Western monsters. It's funny to have a sound effect just come out of nowhere when it's been just background music up until this point. And that is going to be an increasing problem when something like this plays on the main screen. If you sit on the title screen for too long, and then out of nowhere you're going to have a creepy laughter sound effect, that's going to be off-putting, certainly, to people who aren't paying attention. Hey, did you see it? The look on the human's face? He looked so surprised. I wonder if he heard the rumors and came to visit. So it definitely seems like these guys are just playing tricks on people. But they went home so fast after coming so far away. I wish they'd stayed longer. In the past, humans used to know who we were. Apparently, they mistook us for evil spirits or ghouls. Again, probably different words in Japanese. Certain humans call us ghost trick. How should I surprise them next time? I'm not sure which specific character is even talking here. It is somewhat weird to have a Western vampire and a Chinese vampire in the same group. Good grief, it's really noisy. Your voices are echoing in the air. Huh? Who, me? Oh, sorry for the late introduction. I'm Alucard, or Dracula spelled backwards. I'm the owner of the abandoned mansion. Is me? Alucard seems to almost certainly be a reference to Castlevania, because that's the first person I know of that is ever spelled Dracula backwards. Does Capcom / Konami, I'm not sure which one runs Yu-Gi-Oh! It may be the same company. Yeah. Well, it's not worth checking out. It's obviously a reference to Castlevania. The racket here is from those who have taken up residence here. They all have their own reasons for coming, such as having lost their old homes. According to one resident, what I like about it here is that we get to scare humans. What's funny is, I really don't think any Westerner would really consider a snowman as a monster or a ghost, even though it is a if you were going to have a snowman that was movable, in the sense that it moved on its own, that technically would be an object with some kind of spirit inside of it. And Westerners really don't think pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns come to life. And then this ghost with horns is a little off too. This is definitely a case of the Japanese reinterpreting myths from outside of their own culture. I've been doing all kinds of tricks to surprise people. I like to hang out with my chums and wait until a human comes by. It would be helpful also if this had some kind of background to it, because this is a little hard to read. I'd love it if more humans would come and play just like the old days. I would like to be sleeping in my coffin quietly and at peace. I don't like it when things get too loud. So I guess that's the value of 150 dark orbs, is to just muddle through a introductory story. Inherently, though, I still think that these ghost trick cards are effectively replacing what a normal face-down defense card could do, and bringing them into modern times as far as being actually playable in ranked play compared to a normal face-down monster not really being playable. Even if you had a normal card that was face-down defense with like 0 attack and let's go 4,000 defense, that probably wouldn't be very balanced if you could do that for like 4 stars or less on the first turn. And it still probably wouldn't be that useful, because almost every deck has some kind of destroy a face-up card or destroy a face-down card anyways, so even having 4,000 defense would not make the gameplay make you successful, and it would just slow down the game overall, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is already too slow of a game. So what makes Ghost Trick deck unique? I probably need to learn this, because I'm not 100% familiar with this. These are definitely newer expansions and newer concepts. Many Ghost Trick monsters have effects that turn themselves to face-down defense position. If there are field spells such as Ghost Trick Mansion, the opponent will not be able to attack the face-down defense monsters. In a lot of ways, this is close to the Toon deck concept from the first series of Yu-Gi-Oh! Furthermore, if there are only face-down defense monsters on the field, opponent monsters' attacks will be direct attacks, but you can also prevent this by utilizing the effects of Ghost Trick Lantern from your hand to use these effects to skillfully dodge your opponent's attacks. So yeah, there is a balancing factor where you can make things face down, but then your opponent can attack directly unless you do something else. Which, arguably the Toon deck was more overpowered than that, but they've put so many limitations on how the Toon deck cards work that it's less likely to happen. Use Ghost Trick cards to win the duel. To normal summon a Ghost Trick monster of level 4 or lower, the Ghost Trick monster must already be face up on the field. Interesting. First set Ghost Trick Jianshi. I thought the triangle here was pointing at this, telling me to click on that, which, yes, clicking on the piano does do stuff. There's all kinds of things you can click on if you're bored. It's not very helpful though. You don't get a description in Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards as much as you might like. if you didn't know what a Zhongxi is, or they have added these related cards though, which is this would be helpful certainly if you were trying to build your own deck, to know all of these cards are related in some way, so there is a decent chance that you would want to have them all in the same deck. Now it wants us to activate Ghost Trick Shot. Next, use its effect to special summon Ghost Trick Mummy from the hand. And put Ghost Trick Zhongqi that you just set to face up attack position. Okay. So we summon this in attack position. Change the battle position of this to attack position. Now activate the effect of the flipped Ghost Trick Zhongxi. This effect will allow you to add a Ghost Trick Witch to your hand from the deck. In practical application, when I am playing a deck like this that I'm not familiar with, I just say yes to every prompt, which very often backfires on me, but it's just not reasonable to spend the extra 20 minutes to read each card and try and figure out what their effect is going to be when you're only going to be playing a deck for a short amount of time. You have to kind of memorize it if you're going to play it for the long term. So I'll now summon Ghost Trick Witch. You can normal summon one Ghost Trick monster this turn using the effect of Ghost Trick Mummy, which I think probably means more that we... Yeah, I guess we had already normal summoned this guy. Use 2 level 3 monsters as XYZ materials. And XYZ summon Ghost Trick Alucard. Again, almost every summon now, XYZ summons. And this is really a great example of how the game has gotten longer and longer. Activate Ghost Trick Alucard's effect. Its effect can destroy one set card on the opponent's field. Destroy the monster in face down defense position. Yep. We used a bunch of effects to summon 3 cards to the field to then summon a special card to the field. Activate Ghost Trick Mansion. Ghost Trick Mansion has a variety of effects. Not only will both players be unable to attack monsters in face down defense position, you may also be able to attack your opponent directly depending on the situation. Also, battle damage inflicted by monsters other than Ghost Trick monsters may be halved. That is a lot. Now utilize the effect of Ghost Trick Mansion and defend your monsters while searching for your opponent's opening. Let's proceed to the battle phase. There's still more that could be done all over the place, but maybe nothing more that would be helpful. Attack your opponent with 2 monsters. Your 2 monsters. And win. Okay. That was definitely a lot of card play for 1 turn victory. Now we have a proper duel instead of just a tutorial duel, which I imagine will not be as much card play because I just won't know which cards to play, and it will be more random. It'll be actually random as far as what cards you draw. It's worth mentioning, this is probably not what you want. It is worth mentioning that you definitely don't see too many people playing Ghost Trick decks at the moment, so they probably were introduced in an expansion several expansions ago, if not a couple years ago, and had their day in the sun for a brief time and then became countered by some more modern technique and fell out of favor. Okay. I think literally all I can do is that. And I don't know if we really would want this on the field at the moment. If anything, it seems like you need the mummy. So putting this guy face down is fine because he has the most defense, but you can definitely see a issue here. In that these cards have incredibly low attack, and in the real world, that low attack really makes these unplayable. 1800 defense is not high enough. Add one deck to your hand. Now they've added this new blue highlight to cards as far as what effect can be activated, but it's not working at the moment. And I assume that's because we're in the solo mode. Let's see. Trying to figure out which of these would be the best to grab. You know what? Let's just grab this one since we only have one of those. And that probably means that there's something to this. It's fairly obvious that they want a high selection, high variety of cards in this setup. Alright, well, I'm going to summon this. I can flip it face down. And I guess I'll do this. And put this here. You can put a trap card here. Really can't do anything else. But that didn't allow me to attack directly. Thought that was gonna let me attack directly, but it didn't. Yeah, as far as this concept, even if there's like some genius concept around this and you really could win, I think most Yu-Gi-Oh! Players would kind of look at these small numbers and not enjoy the experience. Yeah. I seriously doubt any Yu-Gi-Oh player would be happy with something that's just like a 1200 or even a 1600. Okay, flip summon this. Let's add a Ghost Trick spell. Ghost Trick Parade. Ghost Trick Mansion. Let's go with Ghost Trick Mansion, since that's the one we had already learned. Seriously. Still not getting quite the right characters on the field. Well, let's see. You can definitely see how this is. Let's go ahead and sacrifice somebody here too while we're at it. This is just too slow. Far too slow of an experience compared to Zodiac Tri-Brigade, 1-turn kill, 2-turn kill type experiences. I'll just increasingly put things face down. Of course, with everything face down, he's just going to directly attack. Very possibly I'm going to lose here. And I don't know what the solo mode can really do to fix that, because on one hand, yes, the game could hold your hand and do a bunch of more step-by-step tutorials, but the only thing you really could do is just breed familiarity with this deck by having the players so here's the blue highlight. I'm gonna summon this. I'm also gonna pick one of these to summon. Finally now, using... So you have to have the vampire, I bet, is how this boils down. That you have to have the vampire to get Alucard, the Chinese vampire. Special summon from your hand to graveyard, then change one to face down. Is this a quick play spell? No. Activate effect. You can target finish this card from your graveyard. Special summon it from your extra deck. Interesting. Let's see how that works. He's an 1800. He's a 22,000. So let's do that. attach material, add a ghost trick, spell a trap. With trick in the name, you would think traps are a big role. Play a big role. This time I'm going to attach something from the graveyard to it. Activate this. And then who would we want to special summon? 1400. Probably. Well, actually, if I special summoned this back to the field, I could probably then XYZ summon another one of these. You can only have one of these squares occupied by your player. Then 2 level 4 monsters. So if we were going to do this, it would be that one and that one. Oh, or that one. Okay. So unless I wanted to change this into this, I think that's your best bet. First thing you have to do is destroy that. After that, you can just direct attack with everything else. And that seems to be the real trick as far as the ghost tricks are concerned. Is that... Nope, I definitely wouldn't want to do that. Is that you can create a scenario with a lot of work and more turns than are reasonable to see. I'll just reveal a ghost trick card. Then we'll just activate this continuous trap. Also, even though you can't use it at the moment. Some of these cards, these spells that are flipping things face down and face up, are fairly old cards. But yeah, I'm already fairly frustrated with this deck, so it's no surprise that no real surprise here that I would never want to really play this deck. It's crazy. Let's see. Add another trap card. See what this guy does. Adds more things to the hand. Let's go ahead and do this. Just add as many traps as possible. A modern deck would almost certainly have Harpy's Feather Duster, which would destroy your field spell and any trap cards you had, and all of that would inevitably created a scenario that would ruin this strategy. Let's go ahead and just win though. There we go. See, this effect activation would have just let me put one of my cards face down. And then change that to like battle position. And then you have to attack that way. Which that could have really screwed me up if that was like 2000 or 2100 attack. Alright, well, that was slow. And I did the extra content here, so at the beginning, so we're already 15 minutes or so behind. Can we unlock this? Nope, we don't have enough dark things. We would have to watch this first. So let's watch this first. There's like entire characters that they didn't really cover, and they barely get any backstory. Like, ideally, if you were making a collectible card game, you really wouldn't make a collectible card game as much as you would make a deck builder game with expansions. By which I mean you wouldn't have blind bags with random cards that you would buy a card pack and then hope you get the cards you want and then get a bunch of garbage cards nobody wants. A deck builder game where all the cards are guaranteed in specific numbers in every expansion you add is much nicer. It gets away from the gambling aspects completely. It balances the playing field as far as a rich player playing a game versus a poor player playing the game, and really makes it a game much more skill and much less of just luck as far as did you gamble enough to get the right cards. But particularly if you are doing a deck builder expansion, you can add backstory for each of the cards as just an additional like piece of paper or even a secondary card. Like ideally you would have 3 cards for every character and for every playable card. You would have a portrait picture card that is just edge to edge showing the portrait of the character and is very pretty, and you have that artistic value. And then you would have a more playable in tournament version of the card that would look like Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have a lot more numbers and names and descriptions on it, and that way you could play against random people, whereas amongst friends you could probably play with the portraits, and if anybody questions you on what does that card do, you would then pull out the playable card and compare it, and then you would want a third card potentially just to have backstory on the character. This would be narrative backstory, not explanations of what the cards do and the rules of the game. And in a future that is probably not that distant, you would ideally want some kind of card that was somewhat digital and had an LCD screen on it, and it would just cycle between those 3 different views. But yeah, I don't know of any card game that actually does anything close to that, so the closest you would have is Magic the Gathering cards having supplemental books, and the characters mentioned in the supplemental books then having many different cards depicting them. But yeah, you don't even really even have backstory for most cards if you were watching the Yu-Gi-Oh cartoon anime, because they don't particularly focus on the cards in any kind of characterization to the characters, the fictional characters depicted on the cards. Not that much, anyways. What, you have a question? Are all of your ghost tricks living in the mansion, you ask? All of the ghost tricks living in the mansion, you ask? No, they seem to be elsewhere too. I've heard that some of them live in the town's museum. For instance, the Dullahan, I guess that's supposed to be either the Headless Horseman or the Headless Horseman's horse. And the mummy, they disguise themselves as exhibits in the day and then go skulking around at night. Because the mummy has some very unusual things on display, some humans come to see them. Because the museum has some very unusual things on display, some humans come to see them at night. The other day, I saw one that was happily telling a tale about how he scared a so-called security guard. The art style here for this image seems a little different from the art style of all the other cards, as if they potentially hired a different artist to make this one image, or they've just zoomed in on an image card art and then tried to blur it to adjust for it being low resolution. He was saying it's like hide and seek but more fun, or something like that. That's when a mummy broke an object that belonged to a human. The human won't know, so it's okay, is what he said, but they got scolded by the witch. Yeah. We still didn't really get any backstory on this character, or this character, or this character. And here's a cat girl I haven't even seen before. Well, this character, or this character, just a lot of them all over the place. On days when there are big human festivals, the residents leave the mansion to go into town. I only watch from afar, but the whole town is lively and decorated at night with humans in costumes having fun. I assume this is supposed to be like Halloween. Halloween, somewhat getting more popular in Japan these days, overlapping with the general hobby of cosplay in Japan. Not a ton of people do cosplay in Japan, but the people that do come out in full force and do it very well, relatively speaking. And so a special night to dress in costumes like Halloween has become somewhat more popular. But I would say Japan and their cosplay in general is done year round, which is a better way to have any kind of hobby, certainly, or to engage in any activity. It's fairly ridiculous to only dress up in a costume once a year like most Westerners do, and most Westerners stop doing that after a certain age of being teenagers and then never really do it again. In the West, we used to have more costume parties, but that was mostly for the rich, and not even nowadays very common. Man, I'm getting off track. Usually when they are startled, they run away in a panic, but on that day they just laugh it off. The ones trying to scare them look very confused. Well, it seems I have talked for too long tonight. I think it's time for me to go to sleep. If you haven't talked enough, then go talk to someone awake. Now then, have a quiet and good night. So even that doesn't make sense. Why would a vampire say good night? Like, wouldn't it make more sense for him to say, the sun is about to rise, I need to be back in my coffin, have a quiet and good day? Huh? And see, again, if they're gonna change who's speaking, they really should change the font or change the color of who's speaking. So I guess it's these characters that are speaking now. Huh? A human? Is that a human? And so you have a anthropomorphic cat girl and your scarecrow jack-o'-lantern type character. I guess you really wouldn't call it a scarecrow. Here's your hopping Chinese vampire. And then you have, I guess this is supposed to be either like a mermaid or a dryad with wings. Siren, maybe? Maybe this is an attempt at a harpy, even? Ha ha ha. Hey, wanna play with us? Ha ha ha. If you don't play with us, we're gonna prank you. Ha ha ha. Alright. And we found a new card pack, which we should go to the store and see this card pack, because this is the only time where finding a new card pack might potentially give you more a free draw. But that's only for the first time you found these secret packs, which obviously this is not the first time. And in fact, if we actually look at how many Ghost Trick cards I already have, it's a decent amount, but probably not enough that you could reasonably play with us. This is, again, to get back to the idea of why Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be much nicer and fairer if it was more of a deck builder game and you would just buy expansions. An expansion would probably cost you $60 to $100, but you would have 3 copies of this ultra rare. And this ultra rare, and this ultra rare, and all the super rares. You'd have 3 copies of every card. In that would make it much more playable. At the moment, you can, without even reading the cards, say that having only 3 copies of one super rare, it is not viable to play any of these rares or normal cards at all. You just would not play them in any deck at all. They wouldn't even be in consideration for a more general deck unless you just did not have any other cards. So yeah, you've got to have at least 2/3 of all those super rares and ultra rares. And because Master Duel in particular does not set you up in such a way that you could craft super rares and ultra rares by having a lot of crafting points from things like extra normals and rares. Since extra normals only give you crafting points for other normals, then you're not really anywhere closer towards being able to build a deck that's playable around that. And now we'll delve deeper and give it one try on each of these, but it's just going to get you a card protector. If I won here, this would get me 3 more rare cards, and perhaps that is why the cards they give are the cards that they're giving, is because these look like they might be somewhat playable outside of a Ghost Trick deck, instead of being cards that potentially would have only been playable in the Ghost Trick deck. Although the rewards are very light here. Like, anytime they're just rewarding you with this in-game currency to unlock gates, they're not rewarding you with cards. And even here, they're just giving you legacy packs. there's definitely a breakdown in the sense that they're trying to make these solo expansions shorter and more durable by really only making you play one game to get to the end and then giving you 2 extra games. And I kind of appreciate that. But there's not enough of a motivation to do the extra 2 games. Okay. So I want this to be face up. Now we're playing a lot of goblin cards that I guess are supposed to synergize with this. Then I would want this face down. So I'm going to set this here. Activate this. And then I'm going to just summon this face up defense position. Flip that to face down defense position. Notably in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're never allowed to like shuffle these. Which that probably would be the one thing you could do to bring back any value to these defense position cards. Is if you could say if there are 2 or more cards in defense position, you can shuffle them around. There is some danger of somebody doing sleight of hand and cheating by shuffling cards around and swapping in cards that weren't there before. But I don't think there's enough of a danger to worry about that. At any point, anybody with decent sleight of hand card manipulation skills could probably cheat particularly well at a card game. Flip summon that. Go ahead and flip summon that. What is its ability? Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Okay, what can we summon now? 1600. The deck is effectively different now because we are splitting it between zombie cards and ghost trick cards. See how 2 of those resolve. Guess we'll take this and this and choose that, and we'll see if that was the right move. It very possibly wasn't. And there's really not a lot to say here. You're just gonna have to muddle through a game. And inevitably, my Zodiac Tri-Brigade would probably win a lot easier than learning this loner deck, which the fact that the game doesn't have recipes for these loner decks is still a major problem. So even if I did really like the deck that I was playing in this specific battle, I don't know if there's a single way that I could, like, see it all. Yeah, there's no way to really see this deck inside of Dueling. Maybe you can see the deck outside of Dueling and then copy it into one of your limited number of deck slots. And particularly in solo play, I would kind of prefer if that just everything that just happened at a fairly high speed, because I'm not going to pay any attention to what's happening anyways, because I don't have any counters to it. Like, there's no quick play spells, there's no traps, nothing like that. Let's see. Go ahead and attach. And I guess you destroy that one. Turn this up to 2,000, I guess. And then activate this. Probably should test to see what Ghost Trick Parade does. See how this goes. That did not work. I guess you could then potentially go back and forth like this and just constantly attach things and detach things each turn. I don't know if that really works particularly well. If anything, it feels like the Ghost Trick concept moves things around too much. Like, far too much. Like, if you were doing a deck manipulation to get specific cards, that'd be one thing. If you were doing graveyard manipulation to do specific things, that would be different. If you were trying to XYZ summon things, that's another thing. If you're trying to banish things. But the fact that you're kind of doing all of them is too much. And I'm just saying yes to everything, but very quickly losing too. So I'm at like 200, he's at 7,700. I did some deck manipulation there in the sense that I removed a bunch of effect monsters to potentially get a trap. But me attacking directly, it's not working because of his field spell. So let's just let him win. Yeah, and just never am going to pay enough attention to what the opponent is doing to potentially learn much from that deck. All I learned from that entire fight is that I particularly don't enjoy Ghost Trick enough that I would want to play it myself, and I already know from playing a lot of ranked that not that many people actually play Ghost Trick cards, and I only have to challenge it with my own Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck to highlight that it has been defeated as a concept. Go ahead and start with this one. Summon this one. We'll summon this. Just go through the same old usual motions. Summon this. Then I'll stop for a second to activate this effect. And destroy that face-up field spell. Then I'll continue the process to Borbo, who can directly attack without a field spell, so inherently it is already more effective. Let's see. We'll go ahead and activate this and take out 3 cards instead of 4. And then that would allow me to have this guy. Okay. And I think that is more than enough for your first turn. Do a direct attack for 400 there. Just do 48 damage there. Well, he managed to destroy that card. Whatever. So his Ghost Tricks managed to help him a little bit, but I would say probably not enough because we still end up with Zeus at this point. You end the turn, you wait for him to summon things up and do his turn, then you just activate Zeus. Let's just wait and see what happens here. There we go. And just clear the field. Then you just summon this, activate this, Toss this. Do this. The Call of the Grave is a counter. This card is also a counter. So I have multiple counters set up to go if he was able to activate anything, which would be a big if. We now have 4 things plus that we can dismiss to end up with this guy. Yep. It definitely is an example of an imbalance in Yu-Gi-Oh! Too, that the Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck is just so universally helpful. Like, it works against pretty much all these solo stories and wins every time, almost. It works pretty well even in ranked, although at this point there have been a couple of expansions that make it not work as often as you might think in ranked play. But yeah, it definitely seems like it was overpowered, and because it's overpowered, it is a good point to test any of these solo decks that are being suggested as actually being playable when really they aren't. We'll give it the college try and try the loner deck on this, but if I win or lose, that'll be the end of this episode. We went a little bit longer than we could have. Inevitably, you're getting down to just lucky percentages when you're playing ranked as far as certain decks, is if you're not getting the exact cards you need in that first draw on the first hand, you might as well surrender. So Ghost Trick Mary, so this is supposed to be Bloody Mary, or at least an anime take on Bloody Mary. Okay. Guess you go ahead and set that one. All monsters in the field in the graveyard become zombie monsters. Neither players contribute summon except for zombie monsters. Monsters cannot attack face down. Monsters that can attack directly. All effect damage and battle damage inflicted by monsters other than Ghost Trick monsters is halved, so we'll start with that as an idea. Then end the turn. As I say, monsters you control except for Ghost Trick monsters can't attack. Which doesn't this make all monsters on the field zombie monsters? So then they can't attack. So let's see if that really turns out to be true. Like, ideally, even though the Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck is very good, I would trade it in a heartbeat for a deck that just required less manipulation and was more simplistic and took less time to play per turn. But it would have to win the same amount, and that's just not the case. I have no idea how that worked. It says all the monsters on the field should have been zombie monsters. And I guess they were zombie monsters, but they have Ghost Trick in the name, so all Ghost Trick monsters, meaning what's in their name. Yep, it's inconsistent as far as whether they're talking about the name or they're talking about the class. Alright, well. Set that there. Play that. So we went from Ghost Trick Mansion to Ghost Trick Parade. And that's really not going to change much. So I don't know if the field spell that turns all of them into zombies matters at all. If anything, it seems like that is a field spell that would only make sense if you were playing non-Ghost Trick decks. Which that is definitely a problem in these solo modes, is that since you have Ghost Trick decks playing against basically Ghost Trick decks, you're really not getting a good sampling of what the actual experience would be in playing against friends or playing even against ranked players. Flip summon this. See if you can summon that. See if summoning this works somehow. Nope. Just trying everything here. This is so incredibly slow. It would take multiple turns, and it works off an assumption that for multiple turns you would have stymied your opponent, and that's just really unlikely to happen. All monsters become zombies. Native player would contribute summon monsters except for zombie, which you're not going to tribute summon anything with a Ghost Trick deck, it seems. Now let's try this. This doesn't have much attack. This doesn't have much attack. Activate this. Tribute that. Take this. Do that. I don't think either one of these are useful. But one of them's got to be useful, more useful than the other. really don't feel like I'm getting anywhere here. Ritual spells. Guess we can activate this effect. And we'll just toss a card. Hey, that actually saved me. But then he's just immediately gonna bring things back. Still would be an incredibly long road at 1600 damage an attack to do 5300 damage. Honestly, I don't know if I have anything that would possibly defeat 2700 damage. The best thing I can do is, like, I can't attack there. Or if I do attack here, let's just speed the process up and activate that. It's still gonna destroy that. Yeah, almost certainly going to lose here. And I'm just speeding up that process by attacking there just to see if maybe I could have lowered his attack enough. But yeah, seemingly this guy will just be able to attack directly and I'll lose. Unless he decides to do something even crazier. But yeah, you are definitely seeing a lot of cards moving around here. And it's questionable whether they really need to be moving around that much, or whether the game is just pre-programmed to faff about a lot. So yeah, eventually I would get this done. For the 200 crystals, I'll get this done off screen. But the rest of this I'll probably wait until the daily quest is closer to being done. So I do still have to kind of question if there's enough value in making these solo expansions. Inherently, it runs into the problem of the fact that a lot of these cards are just not playable in the first place. So it's not surprising then that going through a solo section is a waste of time, because nobody's going to play those cards anyways. There are 7,000 cards in the Master Duel Pack pool, and arguably 5,000 to 6,000 of them are not playable in what Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually is as far as ranked play, which is what you're going to be playing. Or competitive play of some sort is what you're going to be playing. And every now and then I do change the background art, and it's just a coincidence here that the Ghost Trick background art is what's enabled here. And honestly, I literally just picked it because there aren't that many options as far as background art. I don't even know how you particularly change it. Let's see, monster art here. Yeah. You can have your traditional blue eyes alternative white dragon. You could go with dark magician. That's a new one I could swap to. But there's really just not that many options anyways. And like this one was part of the 1 year anniversary, so I just got this as far as card art or monster art. Yeah, there's a ton of extra customizations in this game too that are not necessary. It would be better for them just to like improve the interface a little bit more, or add more cards, add the newer cards. Well, I guess if we are at the 25th year anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh, which we are, then it's also probably not super surprising that large amount of the cards are not playable anymore. Ghost Trick, unfortunately, I think is fairly recent. I'd say it's probably in the last 5 years that Ghost Trick cards were introduced, and they're already completely irrelevant, in my opinion. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.